Hello, miladies of inestimable value. It's not that she feels nothing. It's that she refuses to perform what she feels. There's something deeply unsettling about a woman who doesn't need to prove her emotions. While the world expects warmth, reaction, and reassurance, the Sigma female offers silence, calm, deliberate, unnervingly unreadable silence. And that silence? It drives people crazy. Psychologists say that up to 4% of people exhibit traits that mirror psychopathy. But the Sigma female isn't one of them. She's just learned to control the chaos everyone else wears on their sleeves. Yet, to the average observer, her composure looks dangerous, her independence feels inhuman, and her emotional restraint seems, well, suspicious. She laughs, but only when something is genuinely funny, which, let's be honest, eliminates about 90% of human conversation. She observes people like she's already read the ending to their story, and she moves through life with a kind of quiet authority that doesn't demand attention. It absorbs it. To those who live on emotional display and social performance, this calm, razor-sharp woman feels like a psychological threat. But she isn't heartless, she's just evolved, she's not detached, she's disciplined. And the more you try to read her, the more you realize she's already 2 chapters ahead. This is why Sigma females seem like psychopaths. Not because they're broken, but because they've mastered what others still fear to confront: complete emotional sovereignty. Number 1. Her darkness isn't evil, it's awareness. What unsettles people about the Sigma female isn't that she hides her darkness, it's that she's made peace with it. Most people spend their lives pretending they don't have flaws, jealousy, rage, or ego. They shove it deep down, polish their masks, and call it being good. But the Sigma female doesn't waste time pretending. She's looked into her own shadow, stared at the parts of herself that others are terrified to acknowledge, and said, "I see you, you belong to me." That quiet acceptance gives her a strange power, the kind that can't be faked or manipulated. When others meet her, they can sense it. There's no insecurity for them to poke at, no hidden guilt to weaponize, no emotional chaos to exploit. She's not perfect, but she's aware, and awareness, to the unexamined mind, looks dangerous. Her calm feels unnatural to people who survive on denial. They confuse her emotional mastery with emotional absence. But in truth, she feels deeply. She's just not held hostage by her feelings. This kind of inner clarity makes her hard to control. You can't guilt-trip her into compliance or shame her into submission. She's already faced her worst thoughts, questioned her own motives, and dismantled her illusions. What can anyone possibly threaten her with after that? And this is where the confusion begins. Society looks at her composure and thinks, psychopath. They mistake peace for coldness, awareness for arrogance, and control for manipulation. But the Sigma female isn't trying to be intimidating. She's just unapologetically self-possessed. She's the kind of woman who knows her capacity for darkness and chooses not to abuse it. That's not evil, that's mastery. While others deny their shadows and let them leak out through gossip, envy, and drama, she integrates hers into silence and power. And that balance between light and dark, empathy and detachment, makes her not a monster, but a mystery the world can't quite label. Number 2. She's allergic to emotional theatrics. In a world where loud emotion is mistaken for honesty, the Sigma female refuses to audition. Society rewards performance, tears on cue, dramatic apologies, public declarations of pain, all sold as authenticity. But to her, that's not real emotion. That's theater. She doesn't need to broadcast her feelings to prove she has them. She believes truth doesn't need a microphone, and that irritates a culture addicted to noise. People often mistake her calm for coldness because they're used to emotional fireworks. When she doesn't react dramatically, they think she doesn't care. When she listens instead of screaming back, they assume she's detached. But what's really happening is far more powerful. She's processing instead of performing. She feels everything, but she filters before she speaks. She values emotional accuracy over emotional display, and that unnerves people who equate chaos with depth. To her, emotional outbursts often hide manipulation. She's seen people cry not because they're hurt, but because they want control. She's watched anger used as a weapon to gain sympathy or dominance. That's why she keeps her emotions private, not out of fear but out of principle. She refuses to turn her inner life into a public show just to make others comfortable. And yet, that composure carries weight. Her stillness forces others to confront their own noise. It exposes who's genuine and who's performing for validation. People who depend on emotional spectacle can't stand her restraint. It makes them feel exposed, almost fraudulent. The Sigma female doesn't deny emotion, she dignifies it. She feels deeply but privately, choosing clarity over chaos every time. Her emotional intelligence doesn't scream, it whispers, and that quiet confidence in a world where everyone is shouting their pain for attention is why she's so misunderstood. She doesn't play the emotional circus. She leaves the tent entirely. Number 3, she decodes people faster than they realize. The Sigma female doesn't just listen to what people say, she studies how they say it, the micro changes in tone, the flicker in the eyes, the small contradictions that betray a lie. To most, a smile is a smile. To her, it's a sentence with subtext. She reads people the way some read body language textbooks, effortlessly, instinctively, and with unnerving precision. This ability isn't mystical. It's born from years of silent observation. She's watched enough human behavior to recognize the patterns, the motives, and the masks. When someone speaks to her, they often feel a strange discomfort, like she's listening beyond their words. That's because she is. She hears the emotional tension under politeness, the subtle defensiveness beneath humor, the insecurity disguised as confidence. And once she sees through it, she can't unsee it. Most people aren't used to being so accurately read, so their instinct is to retreat or attack. They label her cold, intimidating, or too intense, when in truth she's just perceptive. This psychological clarity gives her an advantage in every interaction. She can tell who's genuine and who's pretending, who's loyal and who's calculating. But she rarely calls people out. She simply adjusts her distance. Her quiet withdrawal often feels like rejection, when it's actually protection. She'd rather stand alone in truth than surrounded by deceit. What unnerves others is that she doesn't rely on emotional signals the way they do. Most people trust appearances. She trusts patterns. She's not cynical, she's just aware that not every smile means kindness, and not every apology means remorse. Her intuition moves faster than people can perform their roles, and that speed of understanding makes them feel exposed. To her, this isn't manipulation, it's survival. She reads people deeply because she values authenticity, not control. But in a world built on pretending, being understood too quickly feels like a threat. And that's why people don't know whether to admire her or fear her. Number 4, her intelligence doesn't need to prove itself. The Sigma female's intelligence doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself through results. She's not the one shouting her opinions or fighting to be heard in a crowded room. She listens, measures, and then quietly dismantles problems while others are still arguing about them. In a world obsessed with noise and attention, her silence feels threatening. People are used to intelligence that performs, degrees, debates, self-praise, constant correction. She doesn't need any of that. Her proof is in her precision. When faced with arrogance, she doesn't rise to compete. She lets the loud ones exhaust themselves. That restraint is often mistaken for submission until her calm decisions start shaping the entire outcome. She's strategic, not showy. Her mind works like a chess player who already knows the next 5 moves, but she doesn't announce it. That's what unsettles people. They can't read her confidence because it's not powered by ego, it's powered by clarity. She has no urge to prove she's right, because her self-worth doesn't depend on validation. She doesn't argue for dominance, she acts for impact. Her intelligence isn't about sounding smart. It's about understanding reality as it is, not as she wishes it to be. And that practicality cuts through illusion like a knife. In a society where people equate loudness with confidence, her quiet certainty feels alien, even predatory. There's something unnerving about someone who doesn't need reassurance, applause, or witnesses to their success. People mistake her composure for arrogance, when it's simply focus. She doesn't argue because arguments waste energy. She'd rather build something undeniable. This is why she's often misunderstood. Her stillness feels calculating, her silence feels superior, and her lack of visible struggle makes others insecure. But she's not cold, she's efficient. The Sigma female's brilliance doesn't demand attention. It commands respect without ever asking for it. In a world that screams to be seen, she quietly becomes unforgettable. Number 5, she sees love as a choice, not salvation. For the Sigma female, love isn't a lifeline, it's a partnership. She doesn't approach relationships with the desperation of someone searching for completion. She isn't looking for someone to fix her, save her, or fill some emotional void. She's already whole, already grounded, already capable of building a life without anyone holding the other side of the blueprint. Love, to her, is something she chooses, not something she clings to for survival. This mindset confuses people who see relationships as their emotional oxygen. They expect love to be dramatic, consuming, and all-defining. They expect 2 halves becoming one. The Sigma female rejects that idea entirely. She believes 2 whole people should walk side by side, not collapse into each other. And that independence can easily be mistaken for a lack of depth. When she loves, she does so with intention. She doesn't fall headfirst into romance or lose herself in passion. She evaluates, she observes, she chooses someone because they align with her values, her peace, and her growth, not because she's afraid to be alone. Her independence is so strong that being single doesn't intimidate her, and that alone unsettles people who measure their worth by whether or not they're wanted. To the emotionally dependent, her logic can feel cold. They see love as rescue. She sees it as collaboration. They want someone to fill their emptiness. She wants someone who can stand firmly next to her, not lean on her until she collapses. She has no interest in relationships built on neediness or emotional chaos. Her calm approach to love makes others think she lacks passion, but she simply refuses to romanticize struggle. She's not heartless, she's responsible. She loves by choice, not compulsion. And because she chooses it freely, her love is far more stable, mature, and loyal than the frantic version society celebrates. People call her cold only because they don't understand what it looks like when someone loves without losing themselves. Number 6, she calculates trust, not gives it. For the Sigma female, trust is a strategy, not a gift. She doesn't hand it out lightly or base it on feelings, words, or appearances. Instead, she observes actions, patterns, and consistency over time. A single promise means nothing to her. Repeated reliability does. She studies people quietly, noting how they handle responsibility, how they behave under pressure, and how their words match their deeds. Only then does she decide if someone earns her confidence. This calculated approach makes her seem cold or even inhuman to those who trust emotionally. Most people operate on instinct or goodwill, assuming that trust can be extended and tested gradually. She doesn't gamble with it. Every interaction is a data point. Every behavior is evidence. Her trust isn't a leap of faith, it's a measured decision. Because she doesn't react to emotional manipulation or flattery, manipulators often fail when they target her. They expect compliance, excuses, or quick forgiveness. She doesn't provide any of that. Her boundaries are firm because she's learned that blind trust is a vulnerability, not a virtue. By calculating who deserves it, she ensures she stays protected, composed, and unshaken. Her method isn't cynical, it's practical. She values reliability over rhetoric, action over promise, and integrity over image. That's why people find her unnerving. They interpret her discernment as distrust or detachment, when in reality, she's simply discerning who deserves her loyalty and who doesn't. Her logic-based trust gives her freedom. She doesn't need validation from others to feel secure. She doesn't need to forgive recklessly or hope for honesty from the untrustworthy. She builds connections on certainty, not sentiment, and that precision is what makes her both rare and untouchable in a world that thrives on emotional assumption. Number 7. She understands manipulation, but refuses to moralize it. The Sigma female doesn't live in a world of moral absolutes. She lives in reality. She understands that manipulation isn't always a villain's tool. It's part of human behavior. Everyone, consciously or not, manipulates through charm, emotion, guilt, timing, or silence. She's simply honest enough to recognize it. That awareness doesn't make her unethical. It makes her clear-eyed. She doesn't pretend that every act of influence is evil or that every intention is pure. To her, human interaction is layered, strategic, and often self-serving, and she's fine with that. What unnerves people is her refusal to judge it. She doesn't moralize manipulation because she sees the mechanics beneath it. She knows when someone is trying to emotionally steer her, when a compliment has an agenda, or when guilt is being used as currency. But instead of calling it out or reacting, she notes it, adjusts her boundaries, and moves on. Her calm neutrality in the face of tactics others find offensive makes moral purists deeply uncomfortable. They mistake her understanding for acceptance, as if not condemning something means she approves of it. In truth, her stance comes from maturity. She knows labeling every behavior as good or bad is a waste of energy. People manipulate out of fear, insecurity, and need. Understanding that gives her emotional immunity. She can see the pattern without falling for it. Her neutrality is her shield. But in a world that thrives on outrage and moral signaling, that calm awareness feels dangerous. People expect condemnation, not comprehension. They want black and white. She lives comfortably in grey. They call her morally ambiguous because she refuses to play the self-righteous game of pretending to be shocked by what she already understands. She's not heartless. She's perceptive. Her refusal to moralize manipulation isn't a lack of ethics. It's the presence of perspective. She knows that power lies not in judging human nature, but in understanding it. And that understanding is what makes her quietly untouchable. Number 8. She hides her morality like a weapon. The Sigma female doesn't broadcast her values. She embodies them quietly. In a world where everyone screams about what's right and wrong, she prefers to move in silence. Her moral compass doesn't need applause or public validation. It's internal, personal, and fiercely protected. She doesn't lecture, preach, or post quotes about virtue. She acts according to her own principles and lets her results speak for her. But that quiet integrity confuses people who need to see goodness to believe it's real. Her morality isn't soft or performative. It's sharp, deliberate, and strategic. She knows that the loudest claims of righteousness often come from the most corrupt hearts. So she stays quiet, not because she lacks ethics, but because she refuses to use them as a costume. When she does take a stand, it's decisive and surgical, often leaving others stunned at how she can be so calm, yet so uncompromising. The reason people find her unsettling is simple. Her ethics can't be predicted. She doesn't follow social trends or moral fads. What society calls good doesn't automatically earn her approval, and what it calls bad doesn't automatically repel her. She judges actions by intent, not by image. That independence terrifies people who rely on collective thinking to define their virtue. When others try to manipulate her through guilt or moral pressure, it fails. She doesn't bend easily because her compass doesn't spin for anyone else's comfort. Her silence about her code makes others uneasy, because they can't control or anticipate her reactions. They assume that if she doesn't moralize loudly, she must not care at all. But the truth is, she cares more deeply than most, just not for show. To her, morality is a weapon best used sparingly, not to dominate others, but to defend her peace and principles when it truly matters. That's why she's often misunderstood. She doesn't parade her goodness, she wields it. And in a world where everyone performs virtue for validation, quiet integrity will always look suspiciously like rebellion. Number 9. Her independence rejects emotional control. And that's terrifying. Most people are unconsciously ruled by emotional exchange, guilt, praise, attention, and approval. These are the invisible currencies society uses to keep people in line. Compliment someone, and they'll bend toward you. Criticize them, and they'll scramble to fix their image. But the Sigma female doesn't operate on that system. She's immune to emotional bribery. You can't shame her into submission, flatter her into loyalty, or guilt trip her into compliance. That kind of emotional sovereignty doesn't just confuse people, it scares them. She doesn't chase approval because her validation comes from alignment, not applause. If she believes in something, she'll stand by it, even if everyone else walks away. If someone tries to emotionally manipulate her, she doesn't explode or explain. She simply detaches. That calm withdrawal makes manipulators panic because they realize they have no power over her. She doesn't need permission to think, feel, or act, and that's a freedom most people can't comprehend. Her lack of emotional dependency is what makes her seem dangerous. When you can't control someone through guilt or praise, they become unpredictable, and unpredictability feels threatening to the emotionally fragile. People label her cold or uncaring because her boundaries are firm and her responses are consistent. But she's not heartless. She just refuses to let emotions, hers or anyone else's, dictate her direction. What society doesn't understand is that her detachment isn't about superiority, it's about self-protection. She's learned that emotional control is the most common form of social manipulation, and she refuses to play that game. Her peace can't be purchased with approval, and her choices can't be swayed by rejection. To those who thrive on emotional drama, her independence feels almost inhuman, as if she's wired differently. But she's not detached from emotion, she's detached from control. And that kind of emotional freedom, in a world addicted to validation, will always look like a threat. Number 10. She doesn't play dominance games, she watches them implode. The Sigma female has no interest in proving her superiority because she already knows her worth. While others waste time fighting for control, attention, or hierarchy, she simply steps back and lets the chaos unfold. She understands a truth that most people never learn. Power games collapse on their own. Those obsessed with winning always overextend, always reveal their weakness through their desperation to be seen as strong. So, she doesn't need to fight them. She just watches. And that quiet observation feels predatory to the insecure. When someone tries to challenge her, to provoke her, outshine her, or make her react. She doesn't take the bait. She stays calm, almost detached, letting their ego expose itself in full daylight. That composure unnerves them because it flips the script. They expect argument, emotion, or retaliation. But instead, they're met with silence. It's not submission, it's strategy. She knows that silence disarms the performative and destroys the manipulative faster than confrontation ever could. Her patience isn't weakness, it's her weapon. She understands that people who thrive on dominance need attention to survive. Deprive them of that attention, and they implode under the weight of their own insecurity. The Sigma female's power lies in her refusal to play. She doesn't compete, she observes. And observation gives her the control everyone else is scrambling for. The insecure interpret this stillness as cruelty because they can't understand restraint without fear. But her calm is deliberate. She knows exactly when to act and when to let others sabotage themselves. She's mastered the art of winning without participation, of conquering without confrontation. To the untrained eye, she seems detached or even calculating. But in truth, she's simply too wise to waste her energy on ego battles. Her power doesn't come from dominance, it comes from discipline, and that kind of quiet strength terrifies those who mistake noise for authority. Number 11. She can mirror emotions without being consumed by them. The Sigma female has mastered one of the most misunderstood psychological skills: emotional mirroring without emotional entanglement. She can match someone's tone, energy, and mood with uncanny precision, but she never loses herself in the process. When someone is angry, she stays grounded but knows exactly how to respond in a way that diffuses tension. When someone is sad, she can project warmth without absorbing their pain. It's not manipulation, it's mastery. She knows how to engage emotionally without drowning in the emotional noise around her. This ability unsettles people because it's rare. Most people either overshare their feelings or absorb everyone else's, blurring boundaries until they lose their own emotional center. The Sigma female doesn't make that mistake. She observes emotion as data, signals that reveal what someone truly needs or intends, and she uses that information intelligently. Her empathy is strategic, not performative. It's not about displaying care to look kind. It's about understanding what will create peace or clarity in a situation. Yet, her emotional control often gets misread as insincerity. When she comforts someone, they might sense her calmness and assume she doesn't care deeply enough. When she reacts with balance instead of intensity, they think she's detached. But she isn't suppressing emotion. She's managing it with surgical precision. She feels, but she refuses to let those feelings dictate her behavior. That's why she can walk into any environment and adapt effortlessly. She can be compassionate without becoming drained, empathetic without becoming manipulated, understanding without being used. It's the difference between wearing empathy and being consumed by it, and she's mastered that difference. People question her authenticity because they confuse emotional chaos with honesty. They believe being overwhelmed equals being real. But the Sigma female knows the truth. Real emotional intelligence isn't about reacting. It's about regulating. She doesn't fake emotions. She calibrates them. And that quiet control, in a world addicted to emotional drama, feels almost too powerful to be human. Number 12. She thrives in emotional ambiguity. The Sigma female doesn't panic when things get emotionally unclear. She adapts. While most people crave emotional certainty, constant reassurance, clear intentions, neatly labeled feelings, she moves comfortably in the gray areas. Unspoken tension, complex dynamics, half-truths. These don't intimidate her. They intrigue her. She understands that emotions aren't always straightforward, that people are often contradictions wrapped in insecurity, and that clarity doesn't always come instantly. That acceptance gives her a strange kind of calm in situations that make others spiral. When someone sends mixed signals, she doesn't rush to demand answers. She reads the pattern, watches the behavior, and allows time to reveal the truth. Her ability to remain composed in emotional uncertainty unnerves people who equate love and validation with constant emotional reassurance. They need definition. She prefers understanding. That's why others often call her cold or hard to read. But her detachment isn't apathy, it's patience. She knows that emotional chaos exposes character. People reveal who they really are when things stop making sense. So instead of reacting, she observes. Instead of forcing resolution, she lets situations unfold naturally. Her calm amid confusion makes her look distant, but in reality, it's her clarity that allows her to stay grounded when everyone else is panicking. To her, emotional ambiguity isn't a threat. It's a test of balance. She doesn't need constant reassurance to know her worth or the stability of her emotions. That self-assurance allows her to coexist with uncertainty without losing herself in it. She doesn't chase clarity. She creates it when the time is right. The reason people mistake her comfort in chaos for cold-heartedness is because they can't imagine peace without control. But she can. She understands that not every emotional storm requires reaction. Sometimes it requires stillness. And that stillness, that quiet ability to remain composed when everything feels unclear, is what makes her both mysterious and unshakable. Conclusion. Sigma females are often misunderstood, feared, and mislabeled. Not because they are heartless, cold, or manipulative, but because they operate on a level of self-mastery and emotional intelligence that most people cannot comprehend. They move through life with a precision, patience, and awareness that makes them seem untouchable. Their calm in chaos, their calculated trust, their refusal to perform emotions, and their comfort in ambiguity create an aura that feels almost psychopathic to those who measure humanity by noise, reaction, and emotional dependency. But beneath that intimidating exterior lies something extraordinary: discipline, clarity, and complete sovereignty over their mind and emotions. They don't seek validation. They don't bend to manipulation, and they don't need to explain themselves. They see the world as it is, understand human behavior in ways that others overlook, and navigate life with a quiet authority that cannot be shaken. What the world perceives as coldness or ruthlessness is actually wisdom, the ability to move through life on their own terms, without being ensnared by fear, expectation, or chaos. Sigma females are not villains, nor are they detached observers. They are evolved beings, rare in their mastery of self and understanding of others. They challenge norms not by breaking rules loudly, but by refusing to be bound by them emotionally. They teach, without preaching, that strength is quiet, intelligence is measured, and emotional sovereignty is not only possible, but necessary. If you've been fascinated by the enigma of Sigma females and the way they navigate the world, you now have a glimpse into why their independence, awareness, and precision make them seem so unnervingly untouchable. If this insight intrigued you, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into human behavior and personality mastery. Like this video if you found it revealing, comment your thoughts on Sigma females, and share it with anyone who needs to understand the quiet power that moves under the surface. Don't miss out on uncovering the subtle truths that the world often ignores.